So many people have been in my DMs asking me lots of different questions, from stuff about the sewing bee and what I've been up to since. So I thought I'd do a Q&A video, and I reached out on Instagram for some questions, and I'm going to cover some of them in this Q&A. So let's get into it. For the wedding outfit that I'm working on, there has not been a decision made on the buttons just yet. The person who's wearing it and the person who's getting married, we're all going to meet up, do a try on, because I'm going to start drafting the patterns really soon. And then we'll probably look at a few different options and see which we think collectively works best. I do really like the idea of code buttons. I know a lot of people have suggested that, but I do fancy a bit of contrast as well with the fabric. So maybe something natural like a pearl or a bone or wood would work, but you're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see which one we pick. Would I ever do Drag Race? Yes, I would. Maybe not for a while. There's certainly no plans anytime soon for me to audition for Drag Race. Obviously, I love drag. I've talked about it in pretty much every episode. But I love drag for performing and creating outfits for myself and other people. And I certainly think I'd have to do a lot more to be able to be on Drag Race. And which person would I be in the Snatch game? Well, I've always thought Nigella, but I know they've been done. So maybe I could do Esme for the Snatch game. A lot of people have actually asked this question, and I think a few of the other bees from different seasons have covered this. Whether you can choose your own model, and no, you kind of don't get a catalogue of people to pick and choose from. You can, however, put some requests forward, so maybe it's like body shape or size, gender depending on the challenge, but based on kind of that feedback, the team will, go away and kind of think of some options, and then ahead of time you get kind of their headshot and body shot and some of the measurements so that you can obviously prep for the show, but you then get to meet them obviously first time in the made to measure challenge. So no, you don't get that much choice, but you do get some. So I might be quite different from a lot of people, I'm not sure, but definitely let me know. I tend not to listen to much music while I'm sewing. Sometimes I do, but yeah, I probably would find it really hard to pick what to listen to. I'm definitely in my brat summer, so lots of Charlie XCX, and I do love a good podcast as well, so the Gossip Gaze is a great one, so definitely check that out. I've had quite a lot of messages around advice for first time sewers, and one thing I do say to a lot of people is just get it out of the box and set it up and leave it set up for a while if you can, because I think that's the biggest hurdle. A lot of people will go away and buy a sewing machine because they're really interested, and then it stays in a box and they pass it on to someone else, or they just don't have time. But at least if it's set up, it's easy to access. And then start off really slow, so straight zigzag stitches, small projects like wash bags or tote bags. Build up that confidence of stuff that you can actually use and show off and be really proud of, and definitely do some research on your sewing machine. So maybe go to some local shops or speak to some friends who are sewists and see what they use, or watch a couple of videos on YouTube on your sewing machine, and definitely look at the buttonhole function. the wedding is probably a lot sooner than I care to admit or I'm prepared for, but it's in February next year in 2025. Obviously, things have been so busy since the show, and my Spanish is not that great, or at least to talk to like vendors and stuff, it certainly isn't. So Jesus has been incredible and done so much of kind of the planning while I've been busy with stuff from the show, but we're now at that stage where we're getting into some of those finer details, and I'm certainly going to be making some outfits for the wedding for other people and definitely for myself. So make sure you check out that very soon. Draping is a really interesting technique that some people don't consider to be a technique a lot of home sewers use, but I've always draped, and maybe that's just because of drag stuff, but I think it's a really important skill to have. And I guess to get better at draping, obviously you need to practice, but I tend to try and find lots of different types of patterns that I can really look at, especially if I'm trying to drape something tailored, and just learn about the different shapes, whether that's in the sleeve armholes or the curves on collars, and then just practice kind of draping those. But also if it's something a bit more fluid with lots of like pleats, then I would start with a bodice block that you can use a pattern for, sew that up and then pin and tack on your fabric onto that draping and just play with the shapes. It's hard because you'll try something once and then you'll probably never replicate it again. So a good tip would be to take some photos of stuff that you like. So since the show, I've definitely been recognized, which has been great. I absolutely love meeting people, fans of the show, seeing what other people's experiences of the show was like when they were watching it back. I really love meeting people, so if I do see you or you see me, definitely come and say hello. Um, but yeah, at some of the shows I've been to, so like recently the Quilt Festival was great to see so many people. I get stopped on the tram on the way to work, which is great because it's the perfect excuse for being late sometimes. And also in kind of local fabric shops as well. I'm constantly in them, so it's so nice to kind of chat with some of the people that are there buying fabric. And I get some great ideas from those conversations too. So yeah, definitely come and say hello if you see me. Prep for the sewing bee was probably how you can imagine. Obviously, there's lots that goes into kind of the audition period, getting on the show. Um, but in terms of before episode one, you know, you've got a couple of your made to measures that you have to prep for. So that will be looking at patterns, drafting patterns, sourcing the fabric and anything else. If you're like me, painting on fabric. Um, you also have to do tons of research as well, because a lot of the challenges you'll have never done before. So either that could be practicing or practicing different techniques. I did a lot of research for things like India Week as well to really understand the culture and the different fabrics that I'd be using. So a lot goes into it, but I really enjoyed it because that was such a learning experience in addition to obviously what we learned on the show as well. So yeah, very worthwhile and something that I do as well when I'm thinking of stuff to make now since being on the show. So spending that time to do some planning and research. I was incredibly jealous not to do the reveal dress from season 9. I thought the 3 finalists did an incredible job, and Asma's was just so smooth. Um, Obviously, doing drag, I've made a few reveal dresses. So yeah, I would have loved that one. But maybe I could dig out some of my old ones that probably could do with some improvement, and we could make some like mega reveal dress with more than one in, and see what we could come up with. But yeah, that was definitely one I remember watching and going, oh, I wish I could give that one a go. interesting question, because I think every sewist would say every day is their favourite day to sew. I tend to sew in the evenings and in the weekends because life gets in the way, but I do try and spend at least 10 minutes a day in the sewing room, even if it's not sewing. So tidying up, sorting through patterns, fabric. I think it's really important that I get some time in there, because that's where a lot of my kind of creative thinking happens. So yeah, I would probably say every day is my favourite sewing day. Fabric shopping online or in person. I have been getting more into online fabric shopping, but I still love the experience of in-person fabric shopping. I'm so fortunate to have two incredible shops near me. So Leon's in Chorlton, Abercann's in the Northern Quarter in Manchester. I'm probably in there at least once a week, if not more. And there's nothing quite like touching the fabric and seeing it in person, but definitely have been buying a lot more online as well. And I'd like to probably venture out a little bit further. I know Susie did a video on Instagram of where she buys stuff online, but also some great places in Liverpool. So I might have to go and do a Liverpool fabric shopping trip and see if Susie will guide me through that. A lot of people have asked what's next, and it's kind of like how long's a piece of string type question, because obviously there's some really exciting projects in the pipeline that I might not be able to talk about yet, or still in the planning phase. It's still, such a whirlwind since kind of being on the show, but yeah, definitely a lot more sewing, a lot more exciting projects, a lot more drag as well. A few people have been asking when Selma's going to make an appearance, but drag takes a lot of time, a lot of planning, adjustments to kind of patterns and stuff like that. So yeah, there's some really exciting stuff to come, but you might have to just bear with a little longer. So there we are. Hopefully I've covered some of the burning questions that I received. And yeah, I might save a couple of the others. And if you do have any questions, then maybe I'll do another Q&A video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, something a little bit different, and we'll probably go back to sewing in the next one. So I will see you then.